Ready for it.
Thrilled for it.
Presenting Franks with Turbo Booster Jet Engine.
Nexa.
It looked like all the built-up frustration the Sunrisers Hyderabad might have had against Kolkata Knight Riders over the last 2 seasons on the eve of the IPL final, it's all vented out at Delhi. 278 for SRH, courtesy Heinrich Klaasen's 100. Third fastest in the IPL. We'll give you more numbers, big numbers, lots of numbers, as SRH have scored 278. It's not even the highest score this season. But this is Nexa Presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout. Anil Kumble and Tom Moody. Dustin is here as well. Someone didn't watch the IPL entirely. They just saw Sunrisers' first game and Sunrisers' last game. They'd be thinking, wow, so when are this team going to play the playoffs and the final? My God, please make sense of that, Tom.
You can't make sense of it, and I don't think they will either. And they'll sort of go away from this season feeling it's a missed opportunity. They had an opportunity last year. And you got to give credit to KKR. They outplayed them under pressure, but this year they just lost their way at a critical moment, and they've just reminded us all and themselves how dangerous they are with the bat. You know, clearly that's their super strength, and Klaasen has hit his absolute peak form on the very last game of the tournament.
How does that make you feel? Just if you're a Sunrisers owner, Klaasen hitting this sort of form, having this sort of game, when it eventually amounts to very little.
Yeah, it's obviously disappointing because you knew that 3-4 games before this, SRH were out literally. So yeah, it gets very disappointing when you see the potential, you know the quality that you have in your side, and then they haven't really got the right results first half of the tournament, and that sort of cost them the opportunity to get in the playoffs.
I think one thing that stood out for me is that this late hot run from SRH, I can't help but feel part of it has to do with suddenly it's all gone and the pressure's gone. You know, they can't reach the finals, so it's even enabled them to free themselves up even more, if that's possible. It's a little bit different when, finals are on the line, as we've seen over the last couple of days with teams that are in the top 4 trying to find that 1 or 2 position. They're falling over at every stumbling block they possibly can.
Yeah, and I know you love trade, Raunak, and I think one trade that SRH would love is to bring in the curator of that pitch. Because, this is the pitches that SRH wanted at Hyderabad. They've only got a couple of them. And, otherwise the conditions at Hyderabad haven't favored this kind of batting. And I think that's what they would love, to have pitches at home that favor this kind of
It's the ground size too. It's a smaller ground. Hyderabad's obviously a bigger ground.
That being said, since Delhi came here, they found it really hard. And we were bringing out how the Arun Jaitley Stadium has not been as high scoring as previous seasons, which takes us back to the early conversations of this year that there's centralized supervision on pitches. They're trying to not necessarily make every game a run fest or a road. But is that still a relevant point today, that this was an absolute belter? Or was it perhaps a bit challenging for the batters?
Definitely challenging for the bowlers. I think you don't want to bowl on that surface, and the way the SRH batters were coming hard at the bowlers was quite challenging. I mean, you saw Sunil Narayan trying to, with all the experience that he has, with all the guile that he has, he was looking at various angles, yet he was getting hit, and he probably was the pick of the bowlers for KKR.
2 for 42 off his 4, that's a good result.
Yeah, that's a good result. So even with that kind of experience, trying all those angles, yet getting smashed for 10 runs and over.
Vaibhav Arora was Bumrah-esque at 1 for 39 from his 4.
But on the pitches, don't you feel that after the restart, apart from that Wankhede pitch, we've got a bunch of flat pitches suddenly? I don't know whether it's because of weather change or what it is, but since the restart, GT have conceded 230 plus in a couple of games. Now you've got this 278. It seems like the pitches have become much better for batting at this late stage of the season, opposite normally to what usually happens.
Yeah, probably the point that Tom made, that teams which have sort of are out of the competition suddenly are freer and then going there and then getting those runs, expressing themselves.
Surface discussions can go on. After a point, you realize that both teams play on it. It's not like you can argue too much with what the top 4 looks like, even though no one wants to make the top 2. Klaasen, this kind of innings, what does it tell you about Heinrich Klaasen's capability as a batter beyond just maybe a number 4, number 5? Today they promoted him, and I wonder if this is a thought that they will carry forward on how they use Klaasen the batter.
That's how I felt they should have done. When they sort of lost early on that momentum from their batting lineup, especially the top order with Travis Head and Abhishek Sharma not giving them the kind of starts that they were expecting like last season. Perhaps Klaasen was someone who could have been pushed up the order at that stage. Yes, there was Ishan Kishan. He got 100 of the first game, and then he also sort of, dropped off. First 3 or 4 games later, they were literally struggling with that middle order.
They've improved on the entry points for Klaasen.
I mean,
It's
this
not
season
really
he had,
the
he had 8 or 9 entry points in the first 10. The problem was they never had a base because all those entry points were kind of 20 for 3, 40 for 4. And in the games where they've had this kind of situation where the top 2 have gone well, they usually have brought him in early. So it's not like it's a new thing. It's just that they haven't had enough of these kinds of starts.
And Klaasen's quite unique in that when you talk about these real power hitters, which he's in that category of your Russells and so on and so forth, he doesn't need to be protected against spin.
Yeah.
So he's very rare in that respect. He can bomb sixes for fun.
If anything, it's the opposite.
And he's a major threat in those middle overs. Those middle overs between 7 and 12 are generally where teams can lose their way. So it may be a thought for them going forward that he is our better player suited for that phase, just to eliminate the spin threat, because they've still got the ability to, have the power hitters at the back end of the innings without having to save him to do it.
And the other thing also is, yes, the entry points that he mentioned is fine, but then when you're 4 down or 3 down, rather than 1 down, makes a big difference.
100%.
Yeah, and against spin, I mean, even against these 2 spinners who have been 2 of the best spinners in the league, Klaasen actually has a good record against both of them. I think before this game he had combined 7 sixes of them. Now it's 11 or 12, which is more than any other batters had against this combo.
Well, you'd never think that Narayan and Chakravarti between them in 7 overs would go for 96.
Yeah.
Went for 96.
We have to put in context here that you can almost feel that KKR, like a lot of the teams after the restart, are a bit rusty, haven't played. They've had this frustrating schedule of waiting 9 days or 8 days after the restart to even get a game over here. But I'll come to KKR in a bit. Let me see how they bat, and then we'll have the conversation looking at their overall season, big picture at the end of the game. For Sunrisers, can you make some notes on a game like this when you finish the season, that this revalidates our philosophy, even though it worked 1 year and it was bust this year, but this is how we should continue to play, if at all there was any doubt?
I don't have any doubt this is the way they need to play, but if conditions are slightly different to the perfect batting conditions, they need to be able to recognise that earlier and adapt. And that's where I think they found themselves unstuck. I think the other big loss for them, I thought, was Zampa injury, leaving early.
Sure.
Because my understanding is Zampa was very much in their plans in their playing 11, and they felt that they needed that experienced quality spinner in that middle phase. So, Zampa was not going to get the runs that they fell short in those games, but he would have made a difference to the balance of their attack.
Can we read anything on KKR from this bowling effort?
No, I think it's a team which said, okay, we are already done. Let's finish this tournament and get going. I think it felt like that. I mean, to be fair, it was not the easiest of pitches for you to run in and bowl.
Yeah, sure. Travis Head is all set for the World Test Championship final?
Yeah, I hope he bats like that.
That's the way he bats in Test matches.
Be a 2.5 day Test match. Yeah, well, he does bat a little bit like this, yeah. But, yeah, good signs for him in Australia that he's seeing the ball well.
Just the same, anything to add on Travis Head, or was anything particular today? His takedown of Narayan was quite impressive, who you thought could have been a potential matchup for him.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this pitch probably is really suited to the kind of batting and the style that SRH really bat.
Yeah, like Tom said, I don't think Travis Head thinks about matchups at all. He's just, if the ball's there, he just goes for it.
And that's his strength as well. Because sometimes from a batting perspective and a bowling perspective, you can have too many thoughts going on in your head and you overcomplicate things before the ball's even arrived. Where Travis Head just has a complete blank page, every single ball, and it doesn't matter where he's played and missed 4 in a row, the next one is likely to go over cover for 6.
The only matchup is one of Mitch Stark, but he's not even back in the tournament, let alone at KKR anymore. So let's leave that aside. Now that Abhishek, Head, Klaasen have fired in the same game, do we summarize Sunrisers as good squad but bad season and not necessarily squad that needs multiple changes?
In my view, I think it's an outstanding squad. I had them picked in the top 4 for that reason. They've got one issue, and that's Shami. He's a very fine bowler, but he's clearly finding it harder and harder to get to the levels he has been in recent times because of his injury history, particularly his recent injury history. So they need to seriously try to work out how they can replace that.
Not too many changes. I don't expect SRH to make too many changes. Maybe one experienced spinner. I know Zampa, missed out the season, but an experienced Indian spinner would be even better for the balance. And of course, Shami.
Okay, let's look at to the chase, shall we? KKR have actually made a game out of high chases, even though this is higher than any chase, but they were in the game for a lot of it in the Lucknow game where they were chasing nearly 240. We have been critical rather of how they tend to slow down post power play. This, I guess, sets up how you want to chase this.
Well, I hope they change their batting order because they're not going to win it with Rahane 3 and Manish Pandey 4. Because that's where they're listed at the moment. They're not the sort of high impact players, and they haven't been the high impact players. So we might see some early entries for Rinku Singh and Andre Russell.
What if a power play wicket goes? A wicket in the power play.
Oh, look, when you're chasing 278, you've got to roll the dice, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing to lose here, but I'm still trying to think. Even on that point, if they get say 40 in 3 overs. And you lose a wicket, will you say, oh, we have 3 overs of power play, so Rahane will walk in? Would you say, no, forget all that today. Just send in Rinku, Russell, maybe even Ramandeep, somebody to go and smash.
Well, I've seen Andre Russell score 120 in a CPL game in Trinidad, and the game was absolutely gone, and he was playing for Jamaica, and it was the most extraordinary innings. That's the innings they need. It's the equivalent, if not better, than what we saw of Klaasen. And if that happens, who knows?
Yeah, but how strongly does someone who's willing to put some money on it, if they'd like friendly money, that KKR will still stick to a conventional batting order? Monopoly money.
Yeah, you don't want them to stick to a conventional batting order because this is a game where there's nothing to lose. You just have to sort of send the power hitters there.
Yeah. Well, if you really look at it and think, how are we possibly going to win this? You can't seriously say, oh, we'll just keep Russell at 7. We'll keep him for the last 4, which has been their philosophy over time.
Sure.
They have to turn it upside down to try to get close to this and pull off a miracle.
I think the tough thing is for Rahane making that call because obviously he also wants to make an impact, and in his mind he's the captain. He might feel, no, I can go play that impact innings. Can he put that aside and say, you know what, this is a game to send somebody ahead of me? That's going to be the question, right?
It may not be his decision. Maybe the coach, sort of says, look, this is the way we got to go.
Okay, let's get predictions, and I'd like a prediction for the number 3, no matter what the entry point. Dustin?
I mean, we saw Rahane padded up, so that's a bit of
That's what I'm saying.
a cheat sheet. So I do think he'll be the number 3.
Anil?
I don't agree with it, but I think he'll be the number 3.
Ajinkya at 3. And SRH to win this by at least 50, 60, maybe 100?
Yeah, possibly. Otherwise, it'll be a close. I mean, they'll get to 260.
Oh, you think KKR can still get to 240, 250?
KKR can get to 240, 260. Otherwise, they'll get blown away for 150.
So it's one of those,
Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah, I think SRH winning by 96.
Oh, very specific.
Well, I was 36 off my prediction for the first score. It's a bit disappointing.
That's not so bad, actually.
They were 36 over par.
Yeah.
Right. Final dance for SRH and KKR this season. We'll see how this game finishes. Who knows? Maybe KKR will also decide there's nothing to lose, smash it around, seen one South African keeper batting at 100. Let's hear Quinton de Kock's on his comeback. We'll have a larger picture and look forward to next season for these two teams in our post-match chat. To join the conversation on Nexa Presents ESPN Cricket for TimeOut.
Ready for it.
Thrilled for it.
Presenting France with Turbo Booster Jet Engine.
Nexa.